President Donald Trump has set an aggressive target for 4% growth here in the United States, but can he reach that target? Still with us is Ruchir Sharma of Morgan Stanley. So Ruchir, answer that question. How does he get to 4%?
Well, listen, there are two drivers of economic growth at a very basic level. One is the increase in the number of people entering the labor force, and two is the increase in productivity. Now, historically, both these measures have contributed equally to economic growth. But here is what has changed, which is to do with people. There's been a significant slowdown in the population growth rate of the United States and across the world, and that is something the administration can do very little about. So let's say that they're able to implement their full proposals of tax cuts and deregulation, which help get productivity back up. The problem is this: you can still not get to 4% because the demographics have turned so significantly. In the 1980s and 1990s, when the US economy was growing at around 4%, you had a very sharp increase in the population growth rate of the country. And especially like the labor force was growing at 1.5% a year during those years. Now the labor force growth rate is down to barely 0.5%. So that to me is the missing 1%, which ain't coming back anytime soon. So even if you end up getting a full-blown productivity miracle, which is similar to what you got in the 1980s, that is the 1% which can't come back. So I think that that's just the laws of economics. It's got nothing to do with sort of, what can the administration do and not do.
So run the pro formas to get to the 4%. What do you need out of productivity? What do you need out of it? It would have to be immigration as a practical matter.
Yes, absolutely. So in terms of the fact is that now out of productivity, the best we got during the Reagan years, which is what sort of like the administration likes to invoke, is we got to about 1.7% average productivity growth every year. And the balance, which got us to 3.5% growth those days, came from demographics, so the increase in the labor force. Now the labor force, as I said, is likely to grow at only 0.5% or so for the next 5 years. So the balance 1%, where do you get that from? Either you get massive large-scale immigration, which is not happening, or you get some very significant changes to get more people to come back to work, which is an increase in the retirement age, an increase in the participation rate of women in the labor force. So I think that's very difficult to engineer. So therefore, I feel that the best you can get for trend growth rate in the US economy over the next 4 to 5 years is possibly 2.5%. The 4% number really sort of, I think, is very ambitious, but that's because the demographics have changed so significantly. That's the new math of economic success.